Her boots slipped on black ice near the loading dock, and she barely caught herself on the brick wall. Her lungs burned. Her hands were numb. Behind her, a man laughed. "Careful," Evan Cross called out, his voice smooth and cruel. "Wouldn't want you breaking something before your shift even starts." Lynn stopped running. She turned slowly because running hadn't saved her before, and it wouldn't save her now. Evan stood with 2 security men, all of them warm in heavy coats, badges clipped neatly to their belts. Evan held her backpack in one hand like it weighed nothing. "Give it back," Lynn said. Her voice shook despite her effort to keep it steady. "Please." Evan glanced inside the bag, feigning interest. "What's in here?" he asked loudly. "That's worth all this drama." He didn't wait for an answer. He walked to the industrial furnace at the edge of the dock, lifted the bag, and dumped its contents straight into the fire. Lynn screamed before she could stop herself. The envelope with her cash, her ID photocopy, her phone charger, everything she had saved, every night of scrubbing floors until her wrists ached. The flames swallowed it all in seconds. Evan turned back to her, smiling. "Oops." The men laughed. Evan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Next time I tell you to stay invisible, you listen. Cameras don't work back here. Accidents happen." He stepped away, already bored, and the 3 of them disappeared into the building, leaving Lynn alone with the fire and the snow and the sound of her own heartbeat pounding too loud in her ears. She slid down the wall and hugged her knees, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. She didn't cry. Crying cost heat. Heat was survival. Then she heard it. A sound so thin she thought she imagined it. A whimper. High, broken, a child. Lynn pushed herself up. "Hello?" she called, her voice cracking. The sound came again, clearer now, from the alley beyond the dock. Lynn followed it, her breath fogging in front of her face. She rounded the corner and froze. 2 children, a boy, maybe 8, standing stiff with shock. A smaller girl slumped against the wall, her head lolling, her lips tinged blue. They wore expensive coats soaked through with snow, useless now, and fear filled the boy's eyes when he saw Lynn. "It's okay," Lynn said quickly, even though nothing was okay. "I'm not going to hurt you." The boy's voice trembled. "She won't wake up." Lynn dropped to her knees beside the girl. Cold. Too cold. Hypothermia. Lynn knew the signs. She'd seen them before. She didn't think. Thinking took time. She yanked off her own jacket, the thick green one her grandmother had given her years ago, patched at the elbows, worn thin with love. She wrapped it around both children, pulling them close. "Listen to me," Lynn said, forcing calm into her voice. "I'm going to help you. Stay with me, okay?" The boy nodded, tears freezing on his lashes. Lynn scooped the girl into her arms. She was light, too light. Lynn staggered under the weight anyway and started walking, then half running toward the street. If you're already holding your breath for her right now, don't let her stand alone. Tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stand with Lynn from the very beginning. And while you're here, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Let her know she's not invisible. The convenience store was a blur of light and warmth. Lynn burst through the door, shouting for help. She laid the girl on the floor, wrapped tight in the green jacket, and grabbed the clerk's phone with shaking hands. "Call an ambulance," she said. 2 kids, hypothermia." The clerk stared, then moved. The boy clung to Lynn's sleeve. "Don't leave," he whispered. "I won't," Lynn said, even as her knees buckled. She waited until the sirens wailed in the distance, until hands took the children from you, her arms, until the warmth of the store finally seeped into your bones. Then she walked out. She didn't wait for thanks. She didn't wait for questions. She stepped back into the snow, the cold slicing through her sweater like knives. 3 blocks later, Lynn collapsed. At 2:17 a.m., Julian Calder was handed a phone. He was standing in his study, overlooking the harbor, when the call came in. He didn't ask who was calling. He already knew. "Speak," he said. "Sir," the voice said, tight with fear. "The convoy was hit. Snowstorm interference. 2 men down. The children were missing for 42 minutes. Julian closed his eyes once. When he opened them, the room felt smaller. "And now," he said quietly, "they're alive. Hospital, stable." Julian exhaled slowly. Relief hit him like a physical blow, sharp and disorienting. "Who did this?" "We don't know yet." Julian's jaw tightened. "Find out." He was already moving, coat in hand, mind racing. Through contingencies, someone had crossed a line. Not business, not territory. His children. At the hospital, his son spoke in halting bursts. She was cold. She gave us her jacket. She left. His daughter slept, still clutching green wool in her small fists. Julian stared at the jacket. Old, worn, repaired with care. The kind of thing a person didn't give away unless it was the only thing keeping them alive. "Find her," Julian said. "Yes, sir." Lynn woke to white light and beeping machines. Panic surged through her. She tried to sit up and gasped as pain flared through her chest. "Easy," a woman's voice said gently. "You're safe." Lynn's eyes darted around the room. Private. Clean. Too clean. "Where am I?" she whispered. "A hospital," the woman said. "My name is Ruth. I help manage the Calder household." Lynn's brow furrowed. "I don't know that name." Ruth smiled sadly. "You saved his children." Lynn swallowed hard. "I didn't. Do it for him." "I know," Ruth said. The door opened. A man stepped inside, tall, controlled, dark coat still dusted with snow. His presence filled the room without effort. Julian Calder looked at Lynn Way like she was a question he hadn't known how to ask. "Thank you," he said. Lynn stared back, heart racing. "I want to go home." Julian nodded once. "You can, when you're strong enough." "And after that," Lynn said, her voice thin, "you'll forget about me." Julian was silent for a beat. Then, "No." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. "You gave my children your warmth when you had none to spare," he said. "That creates a debt." "I don't want your money," Lynn said quickly. "I don't want anything." Julian's gaze didn't soften, but something else shifted. Respect, perhaps. Then accept work, protection, time to recover, nothing more. Lynn shook her head. "I won't be owned." "You won't be," Julian said. "You'll be chosen." Silence stretched between them. Outside, the snow kept falling, and somewhere in the city, the man who burned Lynn's life into a furnace was about to learn that kindness, once noticed, could be far more dangerous than cruelty. And if you think Lynn deserves more than this world has given her so far, stay with her. Because what comes next will test everything she believes about power, safety, and love. Lynn left the hospital 3 days later with a paper bag of donated clothes and a warning she didn't understand. "Don't go back there," the nurse said quietly, eyes flicking to the hallway like someone might be listening. "Someone already asked for you." Lynn nodded, because nodding was easier than admitting she had nowhere else to go. Outside, Harbor City was still buried in winter. The wind cut through her sweater. She wrapped her arms around herself and started walking. She made it half a block before a black sedan eased up beside her. The window slid down. Julian Calder sat inside, coat open, posture relaxed, like he owned the street by default. "You're going to freeze," he said. "I'll manage," Lynn replied without stopping. "You collapsed," Julian said. "That's not managing." She kept walking. The car rolled alongside her at the same pace. "Evan Cross," Julian continued, voice calm. "Security supervisor, history of harassment. You weren't his first." Lynn's steps faltered. "You said you wouldn't—" "I said you wouldn't be owned," Julian said. "I didn't say the world would stop circling you." She stopped and turned. "What do you want?" Julian met her gaze. "For you to be safe, long enough to decide what you want next." She laughed, sharp and humorless. "Safety isn't something people like me get offered." "People like you," Julian said, not unkindly, "save strangers in snowstorms." Silence stretched. Lynn's fingers tingled with cold, with anger, with fear. "I don't need a savior," she said. Julian nodded once. "Good. I don't need to be one. I need you to accept a job." She stared. "A job." "Paid," Julian said. "Legal, temporary. You leave when you want." "And the catch," Lynn said flatly. Julian's mouth twitched. "You'll be near my children. They won't sleep otherwise." She hesitated. Images flashed. The boys shaking hands, the girls' blue lips, the way they'd clung to her jacket. "I'm not a nanny," Lynn said. "You're not," Julian agreed. "You're someone they trust." She looked away. The city felt suddenly very loud. "I'll think about it." Julian handed her a card through the open window. No logo, just a name and number. "Call me before nightfall." Harbor City gets colder after dark. The car drove off. Lynn stood there for a long time, staring at the card like it might burn her fingers. She called just before sunset. "I'll come," she said. "On my terms." Julian's reply was immediate. "I wouldn't accept anything else." The estate didn't look like a fortress. That unsettled Lynn more than walls would have. Tall gates opened silently. Lights glowed warm against the snow. The house felt lived in, not staged. Quiet, but not empty. A woman with silver-streaked hair greeted her at the door. "I'm Miriam," she said. "You must be Lynn." Lynn nodded. "You're early," Miriam added, smiling. "The children have been asking all day." Before Lynn could respond, footsteps thundered down the hall. "It's her!" a boy's voice shouted. "It's the scarf lady!" Lynn barely had time to brace herself before Noah wrapped his arms around her waist. Elise followed, smaller arms tight around her legs. Lynn froze. Then slowly, awkwardly, she hugged them back. "Hey," she whispered. "You're okay." "We kept it," Elise said, holding up the green scarf. "Daddy says it's important." Lynn swallowed hard. It was your turn to be warm. Julian watched from the doorway. He didn't interrupt. He didn't move. Something in his expression loosened, just a fraction. Days passed differently at the estate. Lynn cooked simple meals, taught the kids how to fold dumplings, read aloud at night until their breathing evened out. She avoided the men in suits, avoided the cameras she pretended not to notice. Julian stayed distant, respectful, always watching, never hovering. Until one night when Lynn found him in the greenhouse. "You don't sleep," she said without thinking. Julian glanced up. "Neither do you." She folded her arms. "Why are you really doing this?" He didn't deflect. "Because kindness creates ripples, and I don't like not knowing where they go." "That's not an answer." Julian stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "My wife died because someone believed compassion was weakness." Lynn's breath caught. "I'm sorry." "So am I," Julian said quietly. "I won't make that mistake again." She studied him, heart pounding. "You think caring about me makes you weak." "I think pretending I don't would," he replied. Evan Cross called the next morning. Lynn answered because ignoring him had never worked before. "Nice place you're staying," Evan drawled. "Funny how things turn around." Her hands shook. "What do you want?" "Your silence," Evan said. "And a favor, or I start asking questions. Immigration loves questions." She hung up, chest tight, and walked straight into Julian's office. "He knows," she said. "About me." Julian's face went still. "I'll handle it." "No," Lynn snapped. "You won't scare him away like he never existed. That doesn't fix what he did." Julian's eyes sharpened. "It fixes what he'll do next." "And then what?" Lynn demanded. "Another man, another threat." Julian leaned back, studying her like a chessboard. "Then you. Stop being a secret!" The words landed heavy. "I don't want your enemies," Lynn said. Julian stood. "They're already looking." Evan Cross boarded a bus out of Harbor City that night. He didn't look back. Lynn found out 2 days later. She felt relief, then fear, then guilt for feeling relieved. Julian met her eyes. "You didn't ask for this, but you decided it," she said softly. "Yes," Julian said, "because the alternative was worse." She nodded, accepting the truth even as it scared her. The call came just after midnight. Julian answered, listened, then closed his eyes. "What?" Lynn asked. "A name," Julian said. "Roman Volkov." She felt it before he explained. The tightening in the air, the shift. "He killed my wife," Julian said. "And now he knows you matter." Lynn's voice was barely audible. "What does that mean?" Julian looked at her, something fierce and honest in his gaze. "It means the quiet part of your life is over." Outside, the snow began to fall again, and somewhere in the city, a man was planning how to turn kindness into leverage. Lynn didn't sleep that night. She lay on the narrow guest bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. Pipes ticking, distant footsteps, a low murmur of voices that stopped whenever she focused too hard on them. Roman Volkov. The name pressed against her ribs like a bruise. By morning, she had decided 2 things. First, she would not run. Second, she would not pretend ignorance was protection. She found Julian in the kitchen just after dawn. He was already dressed, jacket on, phone in hand, always moving, always 5 steps ahead. "We need to talk," Lynn said. Julian set the phone down immediately. That alone told her how serious he took her. About Volkov, she continued, and about me. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. She didn't. I don't want to be hidden, or handled, or protected like an object. Julian studied her for a long moment. Then say what you want. I want to know what's coming, Lynn said, and I want to choose how I stand in it. Something like approval flickered across his face. Volkov doesn't move fast. He probes. He watches. He sends messages disguised as accidents. Lynn swallowed. Like what? Like people asking questions about you, Julian said. Like your past becoming interesting again. Her chest tightened. He'll use it. Yes. And the children, she said quietly. Julian's jaw hardened. That's where he crosses a line. Lynn finally sat. Her hands shook. Then why haven't you sent me away? Because distance wouldn't protect you, Julian said, and because you wouldn't forgive me if I tried. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The message came that afternoon. Not a threat. Not directly. A delivery arrived at the gate. No return address. Inside the box was a child's mitten. Blue, small, wet with melted snow. Lynn knew it instantly. Elise's. Her knees nearly gave out. Julian was beside her in a second. Where did this come from? I don't know, Lynn whispered. But he knows. The house locked down without drama. Doors sealed. Men moved with purpose. The children were taken upstairs, confused but unharmed. Julian's voice was calm. Too calm. This is a test. A test for what? Lynn demanded. For you, he said. And for me. Her voice shook. What does he want? Julian met her eyes. To see if I react. And will you? Yes, Julian said simply. That night, Harbor City lost power in 3 districts. The estate didn't. Lynn sat in the children's room, Elise asleep against her shoulder, Noah curled tight at her side. She hummed softly, a tune her mother used to sing when the cold crept into their apartment walls. Downstairs, raised voices. Then silence. Julian came for her, just before midnight. They're safe, he said, before she could ask. She searched his face. What happened? I sent a message back, Julian replied. One he'll understand. She hesitated. What kind of message? Julian's eyes were dark. The kind that says you're not leverage, you're a line. Lynn felt fear rise. Then something else. Resolve, sharp and unwelcome. I don't want blood because of me, she said. Julian didn't lie. Volkov does. If you're still with Lynn right now, don't look away. This is where people usually decide whether they stand with her or let the world take her apart. Tap like if you believe she deserves safety. Subscribe if you think kindness shouldn't be punished. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Lynn is about to find out how many people are truly on her side. The first attack didn't come from outside. It came from memory. An official-looking letter. Arrived 2 days later. Immigration review. Mandatory appearance. Old records flagged. Inconsistencies noted. Lynn read it 3 times before her hands went numb. Julian read it once. His expression didn't change. He's pushing you into the light. I can't go, Lynn said. If I go, they'll see everything. And if you don't, Julian said, they'll come for you harder. She laughed weakly. So either way, I lose. Julian stepped closer. No. Either way, you choose. She looked up at him. You keep saying that like choice is a weapon. It is, he said, if you know how to hold it. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Lynn expected Julian to cancel it, to make it disappear. He didn't. Instead, he handed her a folder. Inside were documents, affidavits, witness statements, hospital records from the night she collapsed in the snow. What is this? She asked. Proof, Julian said, that you're not invisible. Her throat tightened. Why are you doing this the hard way? Because Volkov expects me to hide you, Julian replied. So I won't. The day of the hearing, snow fell again. Lynn stood at the courthouse steps, coat borrowed, spine straight, fear buzzing under her skin. Julian stood beside her, not touching, but present, visible. Cameras clicked, whispers spread. Inside, questions came fast, cold, procedural. Then something shifted. A witness spoke, then another. The nurse who'd warned her, the homeless man who'd called the ambulance, a clerk from the convenience store. They told the same story. Over and over. She saved 2 children. She collapsed. She asked for nothing. Lynn felt tears burn, but she didn't let them fall. When it was over, no verdict was given, just a continuance. Time. Outside, Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and went still. Lynn knew before he spoke. He didn't like that. Julian nodded. Volkov escalates. Now! Lynn exhaled slowly. Then so do I. Julian looked at her. Really looked at her, like he was seeing a future rearrange itself. This isn't over, he said. I know, Lynn replied. But I'm still standing. Somewhere in the city, Roman Volkov was watching the footage, smiling, because now the game had a face, and he intended to break it. Roman Volkov made his move the same night the footage aired. Lynn didn't see him. She felt him. It started with the phone call. Unknown number, no caller ID. She almost didn't answer. Almost. Lin Wei, a man said calmly, as if they were old acquaintances. You make a very convincing saint. Her breath caught. She didn't speak. You should know, the voice continued, smooth, accented in a way that made it hard to place. I admire conviction, especially when it survives cold. She ended the call with shaking fingers. Julian was there instantly. That was him. Yes, Lynn whispered. He knows my name. He always did, Julian said. Now he wants you to know he knows. The next escalation was public. A photo appeared online, grainy, cropped, taken from across the street. Lynn, leaving the courthouse, Julian beside her. The caption read, Charity or Collateral. By morning, it was everywhere. Lynn watched the comments scroll, bile rising in her throat, strangers dissecting her face, her clothes, her past, calling her a plant, a liar, a gold digger. Julian shut the tablet off. Enough! No, Lynn said. Her voice was tight but steady. I need to see it. He hesitated, then nodded. They'll believe whatever suits them, she said. But they're talking. That means he wanted attention. Julian studied her. You're learning fast. I don't want to, Lynn replied. But I don't have the luxury not to. Volkov's men appeared 2 days later. Not at the estate, at the children's school. Security intercepted them before they reached the gate. No violence, just presence, black coats, polite smiles, a message. Julian brought Lynn into his office when he heard. They didn't try to take them, Lynn said, heart pounding. They wanted to be seen. Yes, Julian replied. He's telling me he can reach anywhere. And you, Lynn said quietly. He's telling you I'm the pressure point. Julian didn't deny it. I won't be, Lynn said. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. I won't let them be used because of me. Julian leaned back, eyes dark. Then you'll have to step closer to the fire. Lynn swallowed. Tell me how. Roman Volkov invited them to dinner, not a trap, not an ambush, an invitation. Private dining room, neutral ground, no weapons, just conversation. Julian refused at first. Lynn didn't. He won't stop, she said. Not unless I'm real to him. Julian's jaw tightened. You don't owe him reality. I know, Lynn replied. But he's already writing my story. I want a line in it. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Julian nodded. 1 hour, I'm with you the entire time. Volkov was younger than Lynn expected. Tall, sharp features, gray eyes that missed nothing. He smiled like someone who had never been told no. Miss Wei, he said, standing as she entered. In person, you're quieter. Lynn met his gaze. You're louder than I imagined. Volkov laughed softly. Good. They sat. The conversation was civil, almost absurdly so. Food was served, wine poured. You gave away your coat, Volkov said casually. Why? Lynn didn't look away. Because they were freezing. No calculation, he pressed. No expectation of return. No, Lynn said, just cold children. Volkov watched her closely. People like you disrupt economies. Julian's voice was calm. She's not for sale. Volkov smiled. Everyone is. Lynn spoke before Julian. Could respond. No, everyone has a price. That doesn't mean they're owned. Volkov's eyes sharpened. Interest flickered. You think you're different, he said. I know I am, Lynn replied. You're trying to turn me into a threat because kindness embarrasses you. The table went still. Then Volkov laughed, genuine this time. I like you, Julian stood. We're done. Volkov rose as well. This was enjoyable, truly. As they left, Volkov added softly, Next time, Miss Wei, I won't ask for dinner. The attack came 3 nights later, not on the estate, on Lynn's past. Her old employer was arrested, charged with falsifying records, her name dragged into the mess. Headlines implied complicity. Lynn felt the ground tilt under her feet. "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "I know," Julian said. "But everyone else won't," she replied. "This is how he wins. He doesn't touch me. He stains me." Julian's expression hardened. "Then we clean it." "How?" Lynn asked. "By destroying him." Julian shook his head. "By making you undeniable." They moved her, not away, forward. Lynn was brought into meetings, introduced to people who mattered. Her story was told carefully, truth intact. She spoke at a charity event, at a community forum, at a school fundraiser. Each time her voice steadied. Each time Volkov lost a little ground. But pressure builds before it breaks. The final warning came in the form of a message, delivered to Julian alone. Choose. The woman or the children. Julian showed Lynn immediately. She read it once. Then she looked up, eyes burning. "He thinks I'll beg." Julian's voice was low. "He thinks I'll hesitate." Lynn stood. "Then let's disappoint him?" "If you're feeling your chest tighten right now, that's not an accident." This is the moment where Lynn stops being the story that happens to her and starts becoming the one people fear. Stand with her. Like the video if you believe she should win this fight. Subscribe if you're tired of seeing good people crushed for daring to care, and comment where you're watching from and what time it is, because what happens next will change everything. Roman Volkov did not expect Lynn to walk into his territory alone, but she did. No Julian, no entourage, just her. She stood in the open space of his private club, heart hammering, hands steady. Volkov's smile faltered for the first time. "You're brave," he said. "No," Lynn replied. "I'm done being afraid." "You think this ends well?" Volkov said. "You think he'll choose you?" "I'm not asking him to choose," Lynn said. "I'm choosing myself." Volkov studied her, then nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "Let's see how deep your conviction runs." Outside, Julian felt it. The moment balance shifted, and he moved, because this was no longer about leverage. It was about survival. Lynn didn't flinch when the doors closed behind her. The sound echoed. Final, like punctuation. Roman Volkov studied her the way men studied weapons they didn't yet understand. Slowly, from every angle, he circled once, hands loose at his sides. "You came alone," he said. "I came honest," Lynn replied. "You wouldn't respect anything else." Volkov smiled faintly. "You assume I respect honesty." "You respect control," Lynn said. "And I took some back." That made him laugh. A low sound, dangerous. "Tell me what you want." Lynn exhaled. "You're threatening children because you can't break a man. That's not power. That's panic." Volkov's eyes hardened. "Careful." "I am being careful," Lynn said. "Careful with my words. Careful with my spine. Careful not to become you." Silence stretched. Then Volkov leaned closer, voice dropping. "You think Julian will choose you?" Lynn met his gaze. "I think he already has." Volkov straightened. "Then you misunderstand him." Julian arrived 10 minutes later. Not with sirens, not with guns, with proof. Screens lit up around the club, news feeds, warrants, arrest footage, one of Volkov's lieutenants being dragged out of a high-rise in cuffs. Julian stepped into the room like gravity followed him. "You're late," Volkov said lightly. Julian's voice was cold. "I wanted you to see it happen." Volkov's smile vanished. Lynn turned, relief crashing through her so hard her knees nearly buckled. Julian didn't touch her. He just stood close enough that she felt anchored. "This ends," Julian said. "You stop reaching for what isn't yours." Volkov laughed once, sharp. "You think this hurts me?" "I think it limits you," Julian replied. "And that's worse." Volkov's gaze slid to Lynn. "You've changed him." Lynn didn't deny it. "So have you." The retaliation was immediate. Gunfire shattered glass 3 blocks away. A warehouse burned. A deal collapsed. The city shook. Julian moved Lynn and the children before dawn. No arguments, no discussion. A safe house, temporary, quiet. Lynn sat on the floor with Elise and Noah, arms around them, heart pounding. "Are we hiding?" Noah asked softly. Lynn swallowed. "No, we're resting." Elise looked up at her, small hand clutching Lynn's sleeve. "You'll stay." Lynn kissed her hair. I promise. That promise was tested the next night. Volkov struck where Lynn couldn't shield herself. The basement, her past, the abandoned building she'd lived in was torched, everything gone, what little she had left. Ash. Lynn stood across the street, staring at smoke curling into the night sky. Julian watched her carefully. He's erasing your exits. Lynn's voice was steady. I don't need them. She turned to Julian. I need to end this. Julian's jaw tightened. There is no clean ending. I don't need clean, Lynn said, but I need final. The plan was brutal, simple. Julian would draw Volkov out, publicly, loudly. Lynn would do what Volkov never expected, speak. She stood in front of cameras again. This time, no tears, no hesitation. They want you to believe kindness is weakness, Lynn said, voice carrying. They want you silent, small, afraid. Her eyes burned. I was afraid, I still am, and I did it anyway. The city listened. Volkov watched and snapped. The kidnapping came at dawn. Not Lynn. Julian. One mistake, one opening. Lynn got the call from an unfamiliar number. Volkov's voice satisfied. Now you choose. Her blood went cold. Where is he? Alive, Volkov said. For now. Lynn closed her eyes. Fear surged, then settled. No, she said quietly. No, Volkov echoed. I don't choose between lives, Lynn said. You do. The line went dead. Lynn didn't cry. She moved. She called Marcus, Julian's second. She told him everything. Within the hour, she was back at the estate, children asleep upstairs, house bristling with tension. Marcus looked at her, uncertain. Julian would never want. I know what he wants, Lynn said. I also know what he taught me. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Volkov expected her to beg. She didn't. She arrived at the warehouse with documents, evidence, names, transfers. Everything Julian had been holding back. Volkov stared. You'd burn him. I'd save him, Lynn replied. By ending you. She slid the folder across the table. This goes public if Julian doesn't walk free. Volkov's smile trembled. You wouldn't, he said. Lynn leaned forward. I already did. Screens lit up. Alerts blared. Volkov roared, fury cracking his composure. Julian was brought in moments later, bruised, alive. Lynn ran to him. This time Julian didn't stop her. He held her, tight, like something had nearly been torn out of him. Volkov watched, defeated. You were never leverage, he said to Lynn. You were the blade. Roman Volkov disappeared 2 days later. No body, no confirmation, just silence. The city exhaled. Weeks passed. Life crept back in. Lynn taught Elise how to read. Noah how to bake. Julian how to sleep. One night, Lynn stood on the balcony, city lights flickering below. Julian joined her. You could leave now. She smiled faintly. I could. He waited. I won't, Lynn said. Not yet. Julian nodded. Stay. She turned to him. Only if we're honest. He met her gaze. Always. If you've made it this far, you already know how this ends. But the choice still matters. Like the video, if you believe love can grow in the ruins. Subscribe if you want to see Lynn build something stronger than fear. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. And comment where you're watching from and what time it is. Because Lynn's story isn't finished. She wrapped her jacket tighter around herself, feeling warmth she hadn't earned alone. For the first time since the snowstorm, Lynn felt safe. And that scared her more than anything, because safety meant something worth losing. And this city had teeth. The fear didn't leave just because Roman Volkov did. Lynn learned that quickly. Safety was quieter, not softer. It creaked, it waited, it tested. The first night after Volkov vanished, Lynn woke up choking on the same dream. Snow, burning hands, children crying somewhere she couldn't reach. She sat upright, breath tearing out of her chest, heart slamming like it was trying to escape her ribs. Julian was there before she could call out. He didn't ask. He didn't touch her right away. He just sat on the edge of the bed and said, You're here. She nodded, tears spilling despite her effort. I thought it would stop. So did I, he said quietly. She looked at him then. Really looked. The bruises hadn't faded yet. There was a cut on his cheek she hadn't noticed before. Her chest tightened painfully. I almost lost you, she whispered. Julian's jaw flexed. You didn't. I came close. He met her eyes. You saved me. The weight of that settled between them. Heavy, intimate, terrifying. Lynn laughed shakily. That seems to be a pattern. The city moved on faster than she did. Headlines shifted. Another scandal, another fire, another name. But under the surface, people were watching her now. When Lynn walked into a room, conversations changed tone. Some eyes softened, others sharpened. She was no longer invisible. That was a different kind of danger. You're becoming a symbol, Marcus told Julian one afternoon. Lynn overheard them from the hallway. That wasn't the plan, Julian replied. No, Marcus said, but it might be useful. Lynn stepped in. I don't want to be used again. Marcus looked startled. Julian didn't. She won't be, Julian said flatly. Marcus hesitated. Symbols draw fire. Lynn crossed her arms. So do secrets. Silence. Then Julian nodded slowly. She's right, Marcus exhaled. Then we adapt. Lynn felt a chill. Adaptation had cost her before. The first real crack came from inside the house. Mrs. Calder, the long-standing head of domestic staff, resigned without explanation. She'd been with the family for 20 years. She didn't meet Lynn's eyes when she left. That night, Julian doubled security without comment. Lynn noticed. You think someone else is watching? She said. Julian didn't deny it. Volkov's people didn't vanish with him. Her stomach twisted. Then why are we still here? Julian looked at her carefully. Because leaving looks like fear. And staying looks like bait. Yes, he agreed. Lynn nodded once. Then let's be sharp. The children sensed the tension before anyone explained it. Noah became quieter. Elise clung to Lynn's sleeve like she might disappear if she let go. One afternoon, Elise asked softly, Did we do something wrong? Lynn knelt in front of her immediately. No, never. Then why are the doors always locked? Lynn swallowed. Because sometimes grown-ups make messes and other grown-ups have to clean them. Elise frowned. Are you cleaning? Lynn smiled gently. Yes. Elise hugged her hard. Don't leave. Lynn closed her eyes. I'm here. The next threat didn't come as violence. It came as an offer. A man named Victor Hale requested a meeting. Neutral. Clean record. Corporate face. Ties everywhere. Julian refused at first. Lynn asked to hear the message. He says he wants peace, Marcus said. Lynn scoffed. Men like that don't want peace. They want quiet. Julian watched her. You've learned to read them. I had good teachers, she said softly. Julian's expression tightened. Victor Hale arrived with nothing but a smile and a leather folder. I admired what you did, he said to Lynn, like they were equals, turning Volkov inside out. Lynn didn't smile back. That wasn't admiration, that was fear. Victor laughed lightly. Same thing in my world. He laid out his offer calmly. A coalition, protection, stability. And what do you want in return? Lynn asked. Victor's eyes flicked to Julian, then back to her. Visibility, he said. You. Julian stood. Meeting's over. Lynn didn't move. Explain. Victor leaned back. You've become disarming. People trust you. You soften the edge. Lynn felt something twist in her chest. You want to use me as a mask. Victor spread his hands. A shield. Lynn laughed once, sharp. Funny, I've been called that before. Julian's voice was cold. Leave. Victor stood, unbothered. Think about it. Symbols are powerful, but they don't get to choose who wields them. After he left, the room felt colder. Lynn turned to Julian. This never ends, does it? Julian met her gaze. Not unless we change the rules. How? Lynn asked. By burning everything down. Julian shook his head. By building something that can't be ignored. The attack came 3 nights later. Small, precise. A single shot shattered the window of Lynn's room at 2 a.m. It missed her by inches. Julian burst in seconds later, gun raised, fury vibrating off him. Lynn was shaking, but she was alive. They're testing reach, Marcus reported later. Not aiming to kill. Lynn wrapped her arms around herself. They want me afraid. Julian knelt in front of her. Are you? She thought of the snow, the children, Volkov's smile breaking. Yes, she said honestly, but I'm still here. Julian's eyes softened. Good. The city learned her name the next morning, not from scandal. from courage. Lynn stood in front of cameras again, glass behind her still boarded. They tried to silence me, she said, voice steady. They failed. She spoke of fear, of children, of choosing kindness when it cost. The response was immediate: support, letters, offers, threats too. But louder was the support. Julian watched from the sidelines, something unreadable in his expression. She's changing the ground, Marcus murmured. Julian nodded. And the ground will fight back. That night, Julian finally said the thing they'd both been avoiding. You can leave, he told Lynn quietly. Now, with resources, with protection, somewhere clean. Lynn stared at him. Do you want me to? Julian hesitated. Too long, she nodded. Then no, he exhaled. This life will hurt you. It already has, Lynn said. But it's also where I matter. She stepped closer. And where you do? Julian closed his eyes briefly, like that truth cost him something. The kiss didn't happen then. It waited. For the night, everything almost went wrong again. A bomb was found under one of the transport cars. Diffused in time. Elise cried for hours. Noah refused to sleep. Lynn sat between their beds until dawn, humming softly, hands shaking. Julian watched from the doorway, chest tight. When the children finally slept, Lynn stood and nearly collapsed. Julian caught her this time. She clung to him without apology. I can't do this alone, she whispered. You're not, he said. Their foreheads touched. Breath mingled. The world narrowed. When he kissed her, it was careful. Not claiming. Not rushing. Lynn cried into it anyway. And if you're still here, still breathing with her, through every hit and near miss, this is the moment that defines everything that comes after. Like this video if you believe Lynn deserves peace. Subscribe if you want to stand with her while she fights for it. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. And comment where you're watching from and what time it is. Because the next move will decide who survives. Lynn rested her forehead against Julian's chest, exhausted and alive. Outside, the city watched. And somewhere, someone else was planning. Because power never stays unchallenged for long. And Lin Wei had become impossible to ignore. The calm that followed scared Lynn more than the gunshot ever had. It wasn't peace. It was breath being held. She felt it in the way the house moved. The men didn't relax. The children were never out of sight. Julian slept lighter, woke faster, spoke less. Even Marcus stopped pretending this was routine. 2 weeks passed without incident. Then the city shifted. It started with whispers, then meetings, then invitations that came too politely to refuse. Lynn was being asked to speak again. Panels, closed-door gatherings, quiet rooms where powerful people listened very carefully to every word she said. She didn't want the attention, but she understood it. They're trying to decide what you are, Julian said one evening, as Lynn stood by the window, watching rain streak down the glass. What am I? She asked. Julian joined her. A liability, or a stabilizer. Lynn exhaled slowly. That's not a fair choice. No, he agreed. But it's the only one they'll offer. She turned to him. What do you think I am? Julian didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. Someone who makes this city uncomfortable, because you remind it that power doesn't always look like violence. Lynn felt something tighten in her chest. That doesn't sound safe. Julian met her gaze. It isn't. The offer came the next morning. Victor Hale again, this time with signatures, backing, assurances that looked very convincing on paper. A foundation, her name on it, resources redirected, programs built around exactly the kind of quiet kindness Lynn believed in. And control, Lynn said flatly, flipping through the pages. You get control. Victor smiled. We all do. Julian's jaw tightened. She won't be owned. Victor raised a brow. No, but she'll be guided. Lynn closed the folder. No. Victor didn't look surprised. Then understand this. The vacuum left by Volkov will be filled. If not by us, by someone worse. Lynn leaned forward. Then fill it with something better. Victor's smile thinned. Idealism doesn't last. Lynn stood. Neither do empires built on fear. After he left, Marcus swore under his breath. He won't forget that. I'm counting on it, Lynn said. Julian looked at her sharply. Don't provoke men like that. Lynn met his gaze. They're already provoked. I won't live smaller to soothe them. Silence fell. Then Julian nodded once. Then we prepare. Preparation changed everything. Lynn wasn't hidden anymore. She was trained, not with guns, with awareness, with movement, with knowing how rooms worked, how people lied, how danger announced itself before it struck. She learned to spot tails, to read silences, to exit without panic. She hated every lesson, but she absorbed them. One night, after a particularly brutal day, she snapped. "I never wanted this," she said, pacing Julian's office. "I wanted warmth. That's it. I wanted warmth and quiet." Julian watched her carefully. "You gave warmth when you had none. That kind of act doesn't disappear." Lynn's voice cracked. "I didn't ask to become a symbol." "I know," Julian said. "But symbols don't ask. They're chosen." She stopped pacing. "By who?" Julian's gaze held hers. "By moments." The next twist came from an unexpected place: the children. Noah overheard something he shouldn't have. A conversation between guards. Words like threat and movement and timing. He told Lynn that night, voice shaking. "They said someone's coming." Lynn's heart clenched. "Did they say who?" He shook his head. "Just soon." Lynn didn't sleep after that. She sat with Elise and Noah until morning, arms around them, fear simmering low and constant. By noon, Marcus confirmed it. "They're converging," he said grimly. 3 groups, no clear leader. Opportunists." Julian exhaled slowly. "They smell blood." Lynn lifted her chin. "Then let's not bleed." The plan they chose was dangerous. Visibility. Lynn would host a public event, controlled, secure, children present. "They won't strike with cameras," Marcus argued. "They might," Julian countered, "but they won't miss the message." Lynn nodded. "I won't hide behind the children, but I won't disappear either." Julian studied her. "If this goes wrong—" "It already has," Lynn said. "I'm just choosing how." The day of the event, the sky was clear. Too clear. Lynn stood on the steps of the community center, heart pounding, children on either side of her. She felt exposed, alive, terrified. The crowd gathered, supporters, press, curious onlookers. She spoke. About fear, about choice, about the cost of kindness and why it was still worth paying. She didn't see the man in the crowd until it was almost too late. A hand moved. Too fast, too deliberate. Julian reacted before thought. He shoved Lynn back as the shot rang out. Chaos exploded. People screamed. Children cried. Lynn hit the ground hard. Breath knocked from her lungs. Julian stood over her, gun drawn, scanning. The shooter fled. Caught seconds later, Lynn pushed herself up, hands shaking, heart racing. Julian grabbed her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "The children." "They're safe," he said urgently. "Look at me. They're safe." She burst into tears then. Ugly. Uncontrolled. Julian pulled her into him, not caring who saw. "This doesn't stop," Lynn sobbed. "It never stops." Julian held her tighter. Then we changed the ending. That night, Lynn made a decision. She found Julian in the war room, maps spread out, voices low. "I won't be the spark that burns them down," she said. "But I will be the reason you finish this." Julian looked at her sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm done reacting," Lynn said. "I want to confront the ones circling, all of them, at once." Marcus stared. "That's suicide." Lynn met his gaze. "It's leverage." Julian's voice was quiet. "They'll come." "I know," Lynn said. "That's the point." Silence stretched. Then Julian nodded slowly. "If we do this, there's no pulling you back." Lynn smiled faintly. "I stopped pulling back a long time ago." The invitations went out the next morning. Private, selective, dangerous, a summit. Under truce, under watch. Everyone came, because everyone wanted to see if Lin Wei would finally break. She stood at the center of the room, that night, spine straight, heart pounding, eyes steady. Julian stood at her side, not in front, not behind, with her. "You brought them all," he murmured. Lin nodded. "No more shadows." She stepped forward and spoke. "This city has fed on fear for too long," Lin said. "You threaten children, you burn homes, you test limits because no one ever tells you to stop." Eyes narrowed, hands twitched. "I'm telling you now," she continued. "I won't be your currency, I won't be your excuse, and anyone who tries to use me again will find that kindness doesn't mean weakness." A murmur rippled through the room. She turned her head slightly toward Julian. "Are you ready?" Julian's voice was steady. "Always." Screens lit up. Evidence rolled. Names, transfers, crimes layered upon crimes. The room erupted. Some men fled. Some shouted. Some went pale. Lynn stood unmoving. When it was over, arrests were already in motion. The vacuum collapsed. Later, in the quiet aftermath, Lynn sat alone on the balcony. Julian joined her, exhaustion etched into his face. "You did it," he said softly. "We did," Lynn corrected. He watched her. "You could walk away now. Clean." She looked out at the city lights. "And leave this unfinished." Julian nodded. "Then stay." She turned to him. "Not as a shield, not as a symbol." "As what?" he asked. "As someone who chose this," Lynn said. "With you." Julian's hand found hers. This time he didn't let go. And somewhere in the city, the last of the old guard realized too late. The woman who gave away her jacket had taken everything else with her, and she wasn't giving it back. The city didn't celebrate the way Lynn expected. There were no fireworks, no public declarations of victory, no clean moment where everything snapped back into place and made sense. What came instead was quiet. A deep, uneasy quiet that settled over Harbor City like snow after a storm, the kind that forced people to look at what remained once the noise was gone. Lynn felt it the most at night. In the days after the summit, she moved through the estate with a strange lightness in her chest, as if she were waiting for something else to fall. She slept, but lightly, ate, but without hunger. Every sound still pulled her attention sharp. Trauma didn't leave just because danger did. Julian noticed. One evening, long after the children were asleep, he found her sitting on the back steps, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the garden lights. "You're counting exits?" he said quietly. Lynn didn't deny it. "I don't know how to stop." Julian sat beside her, close enough that his shoulder brushed hers. "You don't have to stop. You just don't have to do it alone anymore." She swallowed. "I don't know what I am without the threat." Julian turned toward her fully. "You're the woman who gave her only warmth to freezing children. You're the woman who walked into rooms full of men who wanted to own her and told them no. You're the woman who stayed." Lynn's breath hitched. "And you?" Julian didn't hesitate. "I'm the man who thought control was the same as safety, and learned he was wrong." She looked at him then, really looked at him. Not the power, not the reputation, the exhaustion, the restraint. The man who had almost lost everything and didn't pretend it hadn't changed him. "You could have stopped me," Lynn said softly. "At any point." Julian nodded. "I tried. And then I realized, if I broke your will, I'd become the thing you were fighting." Tears slid down Lynn's cheeks before she could stop them. "I was so afraid I'd disappear again." Julian reached out slowly, deliberately, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. "You didn't," he said. "You became unavoidable." Lynn laughed quietly through tears. "That was never the plan." "No," Julian replied, "but it was the truth." The children healed faster than she did. Elise stopped waking from nightmares. Noah laughed again, loud and unguarded. They began to treat the house like a home instead of a shelter. One afternoon, Elise tugged on Lynn's sleeve while she was reading on the couch. "When you leave," Elise said matter-of-factly, "will you still come back?" Lynn's heart squeezed. "Why would I leave?" Elise shrugged. "Grown-ups always do." Lynn knelt in front of her and took her small hands. "I'm not going anywhere." Elise studied her face carefully, as if measuring the truth of it. Then she nodded once, satisfied, and ran off to find her brother. Lynn stayed kneeling long after. The city began to change in small, stubborn ways. People spoke Lynn's name differently now, not as gossip, not as curiosity, as reference. Community programs found funding that hadn't existed before. Certain men vanished quietly. Certain deals never reformed. Julian watched it happen with something like awe. "You shifted gravity," Marcus said one night, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like it." Lynn shook her head. "I didn't do this alone." Marcus smiled faintly. "No, but you made it possible." The proposal didn't come with spectacle. It came on a quiet morning, sunlight spilling through the kitchen windows, children arguing over cereal. Julian stood at the counter, coffee untouched. "Stay with me," he said, voice steady but eyes uncertain. "Not because you're needed, because you're wanted." Lynn set her mug down slowly. "That's not a small thing to ask." "I know," Julian said. "That's why I'm asking." She walked to him, heart pounding. "I won't be protected at the cost of my voice." Julian nodded. Never again. I won't be hidden, she continued. Never, he said. And if I decide one day to walk away, Julian swallowed, I'll let you. Lynn studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. I'm not walking, she said. I'm choosing. Julian exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. They married quietly. No headlines, no cameras, just a garden, soft lights, and people who had earned their place there. Lynn wore a simple coat over her dress. Red wool, carefully restored, Julian noticed immediately. You kept it, Lynn smiled. It reminds me who I am. When they said their vows, Julian's voice broke. He didn't hide it. Lynn didn't either. Years later, when people asked how it all began, the stories varied. Some said it was power. Some said it was strategy. Some said it was luck. Lynn always told the truth. It started with a jacket, she said, and a choice. And if you've stayed until this very last moment, you already understand why that matters. If you believe Lynn deserved to be saved, you stood with her all the way here. If you believe kindness can survive even the darkest systems, tap like. Subscribe if you want more stories where women don't disappear, they rise. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next tale. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Because stories like this don't end when the video does. They live in the people who carry them forward. Lynn once thought warmth was something you lost. She learned instead that sometimes, when you give it away, it comes back stronger. And this time it stayed.